Hi guys, so today we will be starting our unit on statistics. We're going to start off with things that you are familiar with, which are measures of central tendency, which measures the middle of a data set. There are different ways to do this, one being the mean. We use the letter mu to distinguish the difference between mean, median, and mode. The mean is the average of a data set. The median is the middle of a data set. And of course, in order to calculate that middle number, the numbers need to be listed from least to greatest. And the mode is the number, and there could be more than one, that appears the most in a data set. As you know, in order to calculate the mean, you have to add up all of the numbers and then divide by the number of numbers in the data set. So when I calculate this mean, I add up these 9 numbers and I get a sum of 471. I then divide by 9 since there are 9 numbers in the data set, giving me a mean of 52.3 repeating. To calculate the median, I first have to list the numbers from least to greatest, which you see I have done. I then want to find the middle number, which leaves me with 53. If you happen to have 2 numbers in the middle of a data set, you would then take the average of those 2 numbers. The mode, as we said, is the number that appears the most in a data set, which in this case are both 51 and 58, since both of those appear an equal number of times, which are 2. You go ahead and try the next example on your own. A measure of variation is a value that describes how spread out a set of data is. It can also be referred to as a measure of dispersion. The first way we measure how spread out a data set is finding the range. The range of a data set is simply the difference between the highest and lowest value in a data set. Therefore, when looking back at example 1, the highest number was a 60. The lowest number was a 35. Therefore, to calculate the range, we do 60 minus 35, giving us a range of 25. Whereas in example 2, we have 31 as our highest value and 7 as our lowest value, giving us a range of 24. Now, standard deviation is something new that you're going to learn this year. It is simply another measure of dispersion to tell us how spread out a data set is. The lower the standard deviation indicates that the values in your data set are closer together. If you have a data set that has a higher standard deviation, that would indicate that the values are more spread out. For example, if I give a test and the average is an 85, and majority of the class fell between the A to B to C range, I might have a smaller standard deviation. Whereas if I had several students get lower than a C or higher than 100%, That might then create a higher standard deviation as the values are more spread out. Now, as you see, the formula for standard deviation is very funky looking. What this big E symbol means, it is called a summation. It tells us to add up all of what we get when we subtract the mean from each value in our data set and square it. So x sub I is each value in your data set, the first, the second, the third number in your data set, where mu is your mean. And then once you subtract each of those, square it, you're going to add them all up, divide by n, which is how many numbers are in your data set. After doing all of that, you will finally take the square root. This will make a lot more sense when we get to an example. Notice I rewrote the formula on the left-hand side for you to refer to. Each of these data values represent x1, x2, x3, x4, and x5. First thing we need to do in order to calculate standard deviation is figure out the mean of this data set. In order to do so, as we discussed earlier, we have to add up all of these numbers and divide by 5 as there are 5 numbers in our data set. When we do that, we get a mean of 92. Although this formula looks like it's a lot at once, all it is really telling us to do is take each and every one of your data points. We'll start with 85. Subtract your mean and square that number. You will do that with each and every one of your data values, and then add up all of those values together. After you add up each of these quantities, you will divide by the number of numbers in the data set, which is 5. Then you will take the square root of that number, giving you 5.4. Notice, as this data set gets longer and longer, it's going to take you a really long time to calculate the standard deviation this way. Although you do need to know the formula and it is very important, the calculator steps are right on the side here for you to reference as to how to find the mean, the median, and the standard deviation right onto your calculator. All you have to do is hit Stat Enter, enter your data values as we've used this list before. After you click Stat, go to the right where it says Calc and choose one variable Stat. You will see a bunch of information about your data set. First thing you will see on there is X bar. X bar is your mean. The next thing you will see, if you scroll down, is the MED. That means median. And then to find the standard deviation on your calculator, you will see sigma x. And that is where you will find standard deviation. Give it a try on the example that we just completed and see if you find the correct standard deviation. When you are done, you may go ahead and give the rest of these examples a try.